All right. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Dan Taylor. I've lived in Tallahassee since 2001. I came here for an IT job. That's what I do for, like, to pay the bills, is the IT consultancy. Thought I would get a year or two out of a consulting gig, which is pretty common. And 22 years later, I'm still here. They seem to think they need me. So again, moved here in 2001. Met my now partner that fall. He had come to go to get his master's degree at FSU, and he and I have been together ever since. And now, after all this time, Tallahassee's my home. So I'm an IT guy, but I'm also an artist, and I do some volunteer stuff around town.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned that you have a partner, and I'm sure that has raised some unique adversities that both of you probably have faced. I can only imagine. And I'm sorry that that's something you have to deal with, but I'm curious as to if you're willing to tell us a story about adversity that you may have faced.
Sure. And I've been thinking about this a little bit, Ben. So, I'm older, but when I was a kid, I was a little bit effeminate, not the most masculine kid on the planet, and was teased a little bit, and not consciously, but just because you don't want to be teased and bullied, you just kind of don't do the things that got you teased, right?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of, thinking back, that's a little heartbreaking, right? That a kid changes himself just to not be teased.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all these years later, I still get emotional about it. But pardon me.
No, you're good.
So, and then later in high school, I started dealing with my own sexuality. I think I might be gay, and I grew up in a small town in Southern Illinois, and it's my family is super loving, and no one has an issue with my sexuality, but I just didn't know anybody who was gay. It just wasn't very common, and I just wasn't around people like me. Or I didn't know that I was. I mean, of course I was, but I just didn't know it, right? So, and then graduated high school and went to college, went to the University of Illinois, and my first semester, my oldest brother, Jim, was in a very serious automobile accident, and required, it was in intensive care, was very, very bad, and he's lucky to be alive. So, I'm off at college by myself, tried dealing with sexuality. My oldest brother almost died in this automobile accident, and so it was not a good year. I was just kind of alone, pardon me. And so did miserably in school. I lived in a quad with three roommates, all from Chicago area, and I'm from way down in Southern Illinois, a little town called Newton. It has a population of 3,000, and you drive down the road, and it's corn on one side and soybeans on the other. It's just in the middle of nowhere, right? So they used to tease me about, here's an Andy Griffith reference about, calling home and getting Sarah on the operator and having her, call my house or something, anyway. So it was a bad year, and so I just decided I was going to take charge of my life, and because clearly at that time college wasn't right for me, and so I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and without telling anybody about that, I didn't tell anybody. I just was like, I'm taking charge. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to join the Marine Corps. No recent military experience in my family. Nobody, I didn't have brothers or sisters or cousins or anyone in the military. So I joined the Marine Corps, and I went to my dad's office after the fact and said, I got something to tell you. And he said, what's that? And I said, I joined the Marine Corps. He said, you did what? and not because I joined the military necessarily, but it was because it was the Marines, he's like, why not the Navy, the Air Force, somebody who's like more known to take care of their people, right? And I'm like, well, if you're going to go right, go first class, right? So I did, and because I was just ignorant, I joined for 6 years. So I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps, and as a gay man, and back in those days, there wasn't even don't ask, don't tell. It was just don't. I mean, it just was not allowed, right? So I didn't. I mean, I just you could be dishonorably discharged for being gay in the military, right? So I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps, and ultimately, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years in, I was stationed at Camp Lejeune, and my good friend Gloria, we became really, really close, and she was like one of the, I don't know, outside of my own family, maybe the second or third person in my life that I told was gay. And she didn't care. I mean, I'm very lucky. That's been the reaction. When, people don't care. I'm very fortunate that, because there are lots of people who don't get that kind of reception, right? But and then told no one else for several more years until I got out of the Marine Corps in '91 and moved to DC and went to work for a defense contractor, testing the Navy's communications software. I spent, I go through kind of an effeminate kid, and then, in high school, wasn't like I was some kind of jock. I was in the school play, musical, and in the chorus, and I was the drum major for the band, right? And the gay guy's the drum major, Kel Surprise, right? But still not out to anybody, and not really having figured it out myself even. So when I finally kind of do wrap my head around it, I joined the Marine Corps, for heaven's sake. So kind of a late bloomer, really. But on the other hand, it was the '80s, as the AIDS epidemic, and I kind of dodged all that. I just really, because there was essentially a whole generation of gay men are just gone, and I didn't, wasn't doing anything, so I didn't, that wasn't part of my life. So anyway, I get out of the Marine Corps in '91, moved to DC, work for this defense contractor, and by this time I know that I'm gay, right? But I'm not wearing it on my sleeve, especially going to work for this conservative defense contractor. So while I was in the Marine Corps, I had a security clearance, and that's one of the reasons that this defense contractor liked me, was because I already had this security clearance. They wouldn't have to pay a lot of money to get for me, right? So I could already, I was already authorized to look at some of the stuff that they were looking at. So they convert your military security clearance to civilian, and that's just another little kind of reinvestigation. Not a big deal like like you initially getting your clearance, but they just need to, so somebody from the government, what did they call it back in those days? General Service? I can't remember. I don't remember what branch these folks were from, but they come in and do kind of a minor investigation. But it's '91, so there's people coming around and talking to you in person, right? And to other people about you. So this guy came to my place of work and did an interview, and said, are there this, going through the questions, and and one of the questions was, is there anything about you that some foreign government could use to exploit you or blackmail you? And I'm like, well, I'm gay, but I'm not hiding that. So, I didn't go on to say like I have been for years. But I'm out of the military, so it's no one can. It's not. That's not going to come back and haunt me anymore. So I said, I'm gay, but there's nobody who can exploit me for that, because I'm not trying to hide it.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of it was a big moment, because I'd never just really I maybe one other person in my life had asked that question, right? And that I could truthfully answer. And so it was pretty, I don't know, it was pretty cathartic. And it's not like it was this big coming out thing. But because I didn't have to be afraid anymore, about who I am. And you know how it is. I mean, sexuality is not your being. It doesn't make up, it's not who you are, but it's a big part, right? And so you want to be able to be truthful and honest about who you are. And so after having, kind of been in the closet for so many years, it was really nice to be able to, come out and
Embrace it.
yeah, and be who I am. But I've been so, lucky and so not lucky. Well, luck too, but fortunate that I just always been surrounded by people. The church I grew up in no one was standing at the pulpit, hellfire and brimstone and homosexuality is a sin. And, I never heard any of that stuff. But at the same time, I didn't hear, any good stories either. You know what I mean? I mean, there were no role models. I mean, of course my parents were, and, folks, but, you know what I mean? There was just not, there was no Will and Grace on TV, and I didn't know, I didn't know. I hadn't been exposed to any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, I guess that's part of the story anyway.
First off, thank you so much for telling that.
Oh, sure.
Second off, I think, one, it's an incredible journey of finding yourself. First off, I think the beautiful thing is you've gone through experiences like that, so people today can express themselves openly. You have kids that are in elementary school, middle school, that are able to have these conversations about feelings they're having because it's much more common nowadays. And it's because people like you had gone through your situation. It has brought it to the forefront of a lot of people. It's a talking point nowadays where it doesn't come out of left field when someone brings it up.
Yep.
It's the same, we've had plenty of conversations here about mental health. And mental health is the same way. 20, 30 years ago, no one talked about being depressed or anxious. It wasn't a thing. You had people going their entire lives and didn't find out until the end of their days that they had bipolar disorder their entire lives. And with time, thankfully, we've come to a point where we can at least talk about it. Unfortunately, you still have people that push back and are extremely ignorant of where we are trying to go as a society. My next question is, although we have come very far with conversations like this, with this topic, what do you think we could do more to further the normality of these conversations?
Well, keep having these conversations, of course. That's a really, really, really great question, because I certainly rode on the shoulders of folks before me,
Mm-hmm.
who helped pave the way. I'm eternally grateful that there's so many people who are, far braver than I go out there and, fighting the good fight. And the political climate is now, in Florida, can be a little dicey, and it's you think about how far we've come, and and think about how all the people that helped us get here, and then to step back is really horrifying. I don't know. I've just always tried to tell people to live your best and truest life, right? And and try to be who you are as best as you can. It's, and if you're not able to do that, seek out the support, because that's another great thing about, here in 2023 is that there are so many resources available for you to, for folks you could talk to. It's really amazing.
Mhm.
I don't want to be that guy that says back in my day, but I didn't have a search engine on a laptop or my phone to try to find information about what's going on, and thank goodness that stuff is available now. I don't know. Have I answered your question at all?
Yeah, continue to have the conversations, I think, is extremely important.
Absolutely. And sometimes they get, sometimes they, when you think they're getting better, they're not getting better. It's getting worse. But that just means that, that we've got to maybe have those conversations louder and try to embrace a greater community to have the conversations. Because, here we're sitting in this kind of pretty progressive town, Tallahassee, Florida. It's, that we've got big institutions of higher education and higher learning, and, the seat of the state government. But, it breaks my heart for the 14-year-old kid out in Liberty County who is maybe scared to death about what his or her future might hold, because, they're seeing on the news that you can't say gay, and it's an oversimplification, of course. I know that, but there's stuff like that that's going on now, and so talk big and talk to anybody you can about having some sense about what's happening in our community.
Yeah, I think the point you made at the end is extremely important. Even if you're not directly a part of the LGBTQ community, you can still support it with open arms. And I feel like people lose that.
And there's, and you don't have to go march in front of the Capitol. There's 1,000 different ways that that folks can be an ally and help. I hesitate to even call it the cause, because you're just helping yourself, you're helping your community, you're helping your family, you're everybody. A rising tide lifts all boats, right? So, you're helping everybody. It's not just because it's the right thing to do, maybe, but maybe there's somebody in your family you don't even know that's struggling with something. So, it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah. No, and it's a beautiful thing when people are able to be themselves. And I think that's one thing the LGBTQ community has shown, at least myself, is that there's beauty in not only finding yourself, but being yourself. And I think, especially today with, social media and everything, there's a lot of fake people out there, and you shouldn't be forced to be fake. And I think that's a huge problem we're facing.
Yeah, we're all better for everyone's truth.